Okay, so today we are studying music notes and rests. So remember from our last class, we considered notes. We looked at the note, we described what the note was. We described the parts of the note. We said that a note has the head, it has the stem, it may or may not have a tail. Uh, Sometimes it may have a dot following the head, you know. So, and then we also looked at the note and their durations. We said that each note has a duration attached to it. And the note name indicates the note duration as well. Okay, so remember that in our last class we looked at 8 main notes, but we'll summarize the 7 because these are the most common ones you'd commonly find in music. So we looked at the semi-breve note. It's also called a whole note. Okay, and that's the symbol there. That's what it looks like. All right. We looked at the minim note. It's also called a half note. Half because its duration is half the size of the whole note. So if the whole note lasts for 4 beats, remember I'm using the word if because now the actual number of beats that the note would last for would depend on your time signature, but we haven't considered that yet, but we'll get to it. When we look at the time signature, we will know exactly how many beats we actually assign to this note. So if your time signature tells you that your whole note lasts for 4 beats, then your half note will last for half of the 4 beats, which is 2 beats. Okay. Then we looked at the quarter note, also called the crotchet note. Okay, so this is it's a black note with a stem. So remember we call that the stem. So it's a quarter note. So because it's a quarter note because its duration is a quarter of the whole note. Remember we reference everything we reference the duration and the names basically to the whole note. Okay, so the crotchet is also called the quarter note, and its duration is a quarter of the whole note. So a quarter of 4 beats. If the whole note is 4 beats, then the crotchet would last for 1 beat because you divide the whole note by 4, which is a quarter. All right. We looked at the quaver note. It's also called the 8th note, 1/8. Okay, and it's a black note with a stem and a tail or a flag, some people call it. Just one flag. All right. And if the whole note is 4 beats, then the 8th note would be half a beat. Okay. Then we looked at the semi-quaver note. The semi-quaver, semi means half, right? So even the name here tells you that it's half of a quaver note. And if it's half of a quaver note, and a quaver note is an 1/8 of a whole note, then a semi-quaver is a 1/16 of a whole note. And it looks like a black note with a stem and 2 flags, or 2 tails. So if the whole note is 4 beats, then the 16th note would last for a 1/16 of 4 beats. A 1/16 of 4 beats is a quarter beat. And we remember last time, it's basically arithmetic. So 4 divided by 16 equals to 1/4, quarter. That's how we come about that. Okay, so then we looked at the demi, semi-quaver. The demi-semiquaver is also called the 32nd note, or 1/32, because it lasts for a 32nd of the whole note. So if the whole note lasts for 4 beats, then a 32nd note would last for an 1/8 of a beat. Okay, and the 32nd is a black note, a stem, and 3 tails. So you see the tails keep on increasing the smaller the beat is, or the smaller the duration of the note is. Then we have the hemi, demi, semi, quaver note. Okay, it's also called the 64th note because the duration of the note is a 64th of the whole note. And it's a black note with a stem and 4 flags. So if the whole note lasts for 4 beats, therefore the 64th note will last for how many beats? It will last for 4 divided by 64 beats, which is equal to 1/16 beats. Okay. So that was what we did last week. We looked at the notes, their names, and their durations, so that whenever you see a piece of music, you'll be able to tell, okay, when I see that note, I'm only supposed to either play that note or sing that note for a certain duration. And after that, I move on to the next note. And that's how you basically read music. You just go one note at a time, and you just stick to the duration of that note, and then you move on to the next note and the next note. And you keep on doing that, and that's how you sing music, written music. Okay? Then, so today we are now going to look at rests. Okay? Because music is not just about what you sing or what you play, it's also about the moments where you have to keep quiet. You know, because sometimes there is silence in music sometimes. So now silence in music is represented by what we call rests. So a rest is a period of silence in music. That's basically what a rest is. And for each note, for each kind of note that we considered before, there is a corresponding rest symbol of the same duration or the same length. So what does that mean? So there is a rest, there is a whole rest, which lasts for the same duration as a whole note. There is a half rest, which lasts for the same duration as a half note. And so on and so on and so on and so on. Okay, the only difference is that a note like this tells you where you need to sing or play. A rest will tell you where you need to keep silent. Okay, so now these are the rests and their symbols. So we have the semi-brief rest, which is also called the whole rest, because we have like the whole note. Okay, and this is what it looks like. It looks like a whole. I'll explain to you how you can differentiate between the whole rest and the half rest. But it looks like a hat, which is upside down, basically. Somebody's hat, you know, a square hat. And then somebody sitting there with his eyes, his mouth. Okay, but now if you now turn it upside down, and you have a whole rest. Okay. All right. So this is a whole rest. Now, if you think about it this way, that's a line. Another way to think about it, how do you differentiate, how do you know it's a whole rest and not a half rest? Because the whole rest and the half rest look the same. But one way to differentiate is, you notice this line, it's like a line here. And then if you're walking, if you imagine somebody walking on this line, walking on this line, walking on this line, and then all of a sudden he comes and he just drops into the hole. Oops. That's how you say, oh, this is a whole rest, because it's a hole, looks like a hole. The half rest, also called the minim rest, is a hat. So that's half hat. So this one looks like a hat, somebody's hat. If you can imagine somebody, so that's your line again, somebody walking on the line, and then you have to climb on top of the line. So that's a half rest or a hat. That's one way you can easily differentiate between the whole rest and the half rest. Okay. So that's the whole rest, the half rest. So if the whole rest, if you see a piece of music and the whole note or the whole or the semi-brief lasts for 4 beats, means that this rest lasts for 4 beats, means that you just keep quiet, you don't play anything, you don't sing anything for 4 beats. Okay? Then the half rest means that the duration is, it's a silence which is half the duration of the whole. So if the whole rest is 4 beats, then the half rest is 2 beats, means that you keep quiet for 2 beats. And the crotchet rest or the quarter rest looks like, I don't know what to call that, but it's like a wavy line. That's how you'll see it in music. It's a quarter rest. Okay. And the quaver rest, also called the 8th rest, because its duration is 1/8 of the whole rest. Looks like this. It's like you can consider it like a flag, a pole and a flag, a pole with 1 flag. And it's quite similar to actually the whole note. You see that the note, the quarter note or the 8th note has a stem and 1 flag or 1 tail. So to the rest symbol has, looks like a pole with 1 flag or 1 flag. Okay. So just like with the rest of the things of the other notes, if this is an 8th note, it means that you have to keep silent for 1/8 of a whole rest. So if a whole rest is 4 beats, then your quaver rest or your 8th rest would be half a beat. So that means you keep silent for half a beat. The 16th rest also looks like a pole with 2 flags. Okay. And then so on and so forth. The 32nd is a pole with 3 flags, and the 64th rest is a pole with 4 flags. Okay. You can also have a 128th rest. Then you'll have that a pole with 5 flags, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But those are the less common. These are the more common ones. Okay. Is that clear to everybody? Rests. Any questions? You have a question. Temperance or Archippus, you can ask your question.
Yes, sir. What's the name of the 128th rest?
Good question. That's your assignment. Find the name of, if you can find the name of the 128th rest. You can, that will be your assignment for next week. You find out, then you come and tell me. All right, any other questions? All right, so let's take an exercise. Let's take an exercise. For each note on the first line, write a rest of the same length on the second line. Okay, so this is, we're going to go to new score now. So I've got this piece of music, which I wrote out initially earlier. Okay, don't worry about knowing how to use MuseScore for now. We will come to it at some point later. So for each of these notes, the exercises, these are notes, right? Music notes, and they have names. Okay, so we are now going to give the equivalent rest of each of these notes. And we're going to put them at the bottom here. Okay, so for the first one, this first note here, this is a minim or a half note. Okay, so what is the equivalent rest? It's a half rest. And what does the, oops, no, that's not what I want to do. And what does the half rest look like?
Looks like
Hello.
it looks like a hat.
It looks like a hat. Correct. That's a whole. I need a half. Is it going to allow me? Is it going to allow me? Okay. Doesn't seem like it's going to allow me to. Okay. Let's draw it with our hands. Okay. No, not gonna work. Okay, we'll have to draw it then. So let's draw it. So it looks like a hat. You're correct. So let me get my drawing too. So for the first one, this is a hat. Half rest, Looks like a hat. Okay. Okay, so in the second note is a crotchet, right? Or a quarter note. What is the equivalent rest? The equivalent rest is a crotchet rest or a quarter rest. And what does it look like? It looks like a funny,
Thunderbolt thing.
like a thunderbolt. Thank you. Let's use the thunderbolt, something like that. It's like a thunderbolt. I like that. All right. And then the next one is also same thing, like a thunderbolt thing. And then the whole, this next note is a whole note. And then a whole note has an equivalent rest, and it's called a whole rest. What does the whole rest look like? It looks like a whole. So we've got the line, and we've got the hole, and we fold into the hole. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, let's proceed. Oh, I'm gonna have to clean my drawer now. Anyway, as long as you guys are following, can I erase this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the next bar. So this note is called, again, a crotchet or a quarter note. Its equivalent rest is a quarter rest, and it looks like the thunderbolt. All right. This is a quaver. Remember, a quaver, when you have two quavers following each other, you can join them together by what we call a beam. This is a beam. But because since there's only one beam, they're both classified as quavers. Quaver is an eighth note. So its equivalent rest is an eighth rest. And the eighth rest looks like
A pole with one flag.
one flag, correct. Pole, one flag. This is a minim. A minim is a half note. So its equivalent rest is a half rest. So looks like a hat. H for half, H for hat. So the line with the hat. Okay. And the next one. Okay, so now we have two. We have the first note here is, what note is this? Who can tell me? This first note. What is the name of this note?
A quaver.
Who said quaver? Who said quaver? Who responded quaver? It's not a quaver. Try again.
So
This
do you
first,
mean the whole note, the whole three
no,
lines, or
just the
just
first
that
one.
one?
Just the one. We treat, so when we say a note is basically, you just follow the head. That is one note. Then the second is the second note, third note, fourth note, fifth note, right? Okay, so even though they're joined together, it doesn't make this a note. This is not a note, eh? This is just a combination of three notes. They're just joined together by beams, all right? So a note is an individual head. So this is a note. That's a note. That's the second note. That's the third note. That's the fourth note. That's the fifth note. But in order to know what the note is, you have to look at the whole thing, the head, and then the stem and beams and what the beams look like, or if there's a flag, what the flag looks like. That tells you exactly what the note is. So when you look at this note, the first note, let me get my eraser here. What is this first note? That's the question now. Is it a quaver, a crotchet,
A
semiquaver?
crotchet.
A crotchet. Nope. Try again. Okay.
Semiquaver.
A semiquaver. You're correct. It's a semiquaver. Why is it a semiquaver? Okay, so you've got your notes, but if you notice it's got a beam at the top and it's got a second beam. All right. So remember, the beams are just used to join two notes that are the same. That's just what a beam is. So if you have, but the beam also represents the flag. All right. So if you have a note like this, and then let's say it's got one flag, and then you have another note following it that also has one flag. Instead of putting them individually and separating them like this, typically in music, you would normally join the flags together. So you would have, instead of writing them individually or separate, you join them together by the common flags that they have. But it's still, each note on its own, it's still the quaver in this case. So in this note, you've got two beams, or in this case, two flags. So two flags signify a semiquaver. Let's go back so that we can see it. There. So the music, a semiquaver, is a 16th note, which looks like a black note with two flags. So that's the semiquaver. So that's why it's a semiquaver. Okay. So let's go back to our exercise here. So this is a semiquaver. So what is the corresponding rest? It's a semiquaver rest, or a 16th rest, which looks like a pole with two flags. Okay. So now let's go to the second note here. What's the name of the second note in this bar? So this note, what's the name of this second note in this bar?
A crotchet.
Try again. Not a crotchet. Newton, can you tell me? Is Newton there? Have you lost Newton? Okay, temperance. Can you try? What is the name of this note? The second note in this bar here.
So I think it's a semiquaver.
Correct, 100%. It's a semiquaver. Okay, how do we know it's a semiquaver? Again, you look at the note, it's black, it's shaded, it's a black note, it's got a stem, it's also got two beams. In this case, it's beams, but they actually represent the flags. And remember, the note that is black has a stem and has got two flags or two tails, or in this case, two beams because they're joined together. Okay, is called a semiquaver. So this is a semiquaver. So and the rest, the equivalent rest, is also called a semiquaver rest. It looks like a pole with two flags as well. Okay. All right. Now, let's go to the third note in that bar. What is this note? Archippus?
Then semiquaver.
It's a what?
It is then semiquaver.
I'm hearing you say demi-semi. Is that what you said?
Yes.
No, it's not a demi-semiquaver. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Let me split my screen so that you're following. Let's do this. Clear all my drawings, and I'm going to where's my presentation? Okay. Let's go. Okay, that's what we need. So let's do this. No. Instead, let's let me share this one. Instead. Oh, what's happening to mine? Okay, let's do this. Okay. Okay, so that you can see the names as we go along. Okay, so we are on this note. We said we want to know what this note is. Okay, so Archippus, you look at the notes and then look at the table on this side, and then you tell me what note that is.
Crochet.
Nope.
Crochet.
Nope, it's not a crochet.
Oh, it's a quiver.
Why is it a quaver?
Because there's like a flag and like a tail.
Thank you. Correct. You see, it's a quaver because it's a black note, it's got the stem, and it's got one flag, or a beam in this case. The beam, remember the beam, whenever you see this beam, the beam just simply joins two notes that are the same. So, like I said, so if you have a note, you've got a quaver here, it's got one flag, it's always got one flag. Then in music, you want to follow the quaver by another quaver. You could separate them like that. Remember? You could separate them if you want. But since they are following each other, instead of putting them, individually, you just join them together with a flag, with a beam. So you just join them like that. These two are the same. It's the exact same thing. This is the exact same thing as this. The beam just tells you that there are two quavers because they've only got one beam. Now, if on the other hand, you let's say have two semiquavers. So a semiquaver is a black note with two flags or two stems, two tails. You've got two following each other like that. All right. Instead of writing them, when you write them in music, you could write them separately like that. But if they're following one another and there's nothing in between, and you're in the same measure, in the same bar, then instead of putting them individually, you can just draw them with a beam. So you have one beam to signify the one flag, but you also have to put the second beam because there are two flags. So this just tells you that these two notes are semiquavers. Is that clear? Just say yes if that makes sense, or no if it doesn't. Okay. Okay. So I'm assuming I'm not getting a response from the rest. So I'm assuming it's clear. All right. So it's the same method that you then apply when you want to know what the notes are. So in this case, you've got this note, a black note with a stem and one beam. The one beam signifies a flag, one flag. And the note that has a black note, a stem, and one flag is the quaver note, or the eighth note. Are we following?
Yes, sir.
Great. Okay. So now let's go to the next one. So this note, this is quite, we've done this before. Newton, what is this note? What is this note? What's the name of that note?
Minim.
It's a minim, correct. It's a half note. Now, what is the equivalent rest of the half note? Newton? Okay, let me help you out. There. What is the equivalent rest of the minim note? Newton?
The half rest.
The half rest, correct. And it looks like a hat, like I said. So it's a line with a hat, like a square on top, which makes it look like a hat. So that's the half rest or the meaning rest. Okay. Darasimi, what's the next one? What's the name of the next note?
It's a crochet.
The crochet. What is the equivalent rest?
A quarter rest.
It's a quarter rest. Okay. And it looks like the thunderbolt. All right. So that's straightforward. Now let's go to this one. A little bit more complex, but don't worry, we take it one note at a time. One note at a time. So you've got, who can tell me, Dunsin, what is this first note?
It says semiquaver.
Correct. It's a semiquaver. What is the equivalent rest?
It is a 16th rest.
A 16th rest. Correct. And you can see what the 16th rest looks like here. So it's a pole with two, we call it flags. Okay, Huawei, what is this note?
A quaver.
It's a quaver, correct. And the equivalent rest is a quaver rest, or quarter rest. Sorry, an eighth rest, not a quarter rest. Okay, and it's a flag with one, a pole with one flag. All right, Darasimi, sorry, Dunsin, have I called Dunsin? Dunsin.
Yes. Yes.
Let's try this one again. What is this note?
It's a demi-semi-quaver
It's a demi-semiquaver note, correct.
note.
And then what is the equivalent rest?
The equivalent rest is a 30-second rest.
Okay, a 30-second rest, which is a pole with three flags. Something like that. Correct. Now, temperance, what is this note?
S, 1, 2, 3. I think it should be semi-quaver.
Can you speak up? I can't hear you. Your line is very soft.
Oh, I think it should be demi-semi-quaver. No.
Correct. You don't sound confident, but you're correct. It's a demi-semiquaver because it also has three flags. Okay, so if you go back to the note slide, the note that has three flags and a black note is a demi-semiquaver, or the 30-second note. So its equivalent rest is also a 30-second rest. So it's a pole with three flags. And it looks like that. All right. Now we move on. Let's clean this up. Okay. Now, Newton. No, let's not go with Newton. Let's. I think we all know what this one is. This one is easy, right? This note here is a minim. That's the minim. And its equivalent rest, it's a half note, so equivalent rest is a half rest. It looks like a hat. Shade of. All right, so that one I think is straightforward. Now let's go to the other one. Let's do this one. Okay. Newton, what is the first note here?
A demi-semiquaver.
No, that's not correct. Try again.
Hemi-demi-semiquaver.
Thank you. Yes, it's a hemi-demi-semiquaver. Why? Because it's got 4 beams, okay, or 4 flags, okay, and then the note with 4 flags is called the hemi-demi-semiquaver, or the 64th note. The equivalent rest, as you can see here, looks like that. So it's a pole with your 4 flags. Okay. All right. Archippus, what is the second one?
Any demi-semiquaver.
Correct. It's a hemi-demi-semiquaver. See, it also has 4 beams, just like the first one. So it's a hemi-demi-semiquaver. So the rest is the same. Okay. I see our sister Onyekachi is with us. You're welcome, ma. Okay. Darasimi, what is the third one?
Sir, it's a hemi-demi-semiquaver.
Correct. It's a hemi-demi-semiquaver. 4 beams. All right. And also this one is also a hemi-demi-semiquaver. It's also got 4 beams. Okay. Huawei, what is this one? What is this note?
Demi-semiquaver.
It's a demi-semiquaver. Correct. And its equivalent rest, it's a demi-semiquaver rest. 3 beams or 3 flags. All right. Dunsin, what is this one?
It's also a demi-semiquaver note.
Thank you. It's a demi-semiquaver note, and the equivalent rest is a demi-semiquaver rest. Okay. And then finally, temperance, what is this note?
A quaver.
It's a quaver. So what's the equivalent rest?
Oh, sorry, it's what? It's a eighth rest.
It's a what?
Eighth rest.
It's an 8th rest or a quaver rest. Okay, correct. Okay, so that's that. I think we're pretty much done with that. Let's do the last one. These two are minims. Okay, let me clear my screen. So these two are minims or half notes. So we've got half rests for both of these. Then the last one here is a whole note. And what does a whole, what's the equivalent of a whole, what's the equivalent rest of a whole note? It's a whole rest. And how did we say a whole rest looks like?
Upside
Basically,
down.
it's an upside down hat or a hole. As you're walking down, you just fall into the hole. So that's the whole rest. Okay, so that concludes our study today on rests and the different rests that we have in music. Well, the major ones Obviously, there are others, but they are just fractions of these rests. But these are the main ones you would find generally in music. Okay. Any questions? All right, so with that, we have come to the end of our class today. Next week, by God's grace, we will look at time signatures. We'll go into time signatures, and now knowing exactly how many beats we assign to each of these notes. That's what the time signature will tell you. How many beats do you assign to each of these notes, so that when you're singing, you know how long you're supposed to last. And then also for the rest as well. So, but for today, we'll call it a day. Remember your assignment? The assignment was to find what is the name of the 128th note or the 128th rest. You search and you
So
give me
what
your
was
answer.
the assignment?
So the assignment was basically trying to answer, was it Dunsin's question? Dunsin was asking, or who asked the question?
No, sir, it was Temperance's.
Oh, sorry, Temperance, yes. Temperance was asking, what is the name of the 128th note or 128th rest? So we said that the 64th note is hemi, demi, semi, quaver. So what is the name of the 128th note? So you find that, go find that, and then you come next week and then you give me the answer. Okay. Thank you very much. Dunsin, can you pray for us?
Okay. In Jesus' name, we thank you
Amen.
today. We thank you for giving us the privilege to be able to learn. We thank you for giving us the understanding and the grace. Father, we pray that everything we have learned, we will not just learn it for learning's sake, we'll be able to remember it so we can use it to glorify your name in Jesus' name. Father, we pray that bless the teacher that taught us this. You replenish his strength and you also replenish our strength too in Jesus' name. As we want to continue in the rest of the day, you continue with us. With all our different activities, guide us, be with us, in just mighty name, pray. Amen.
All right. Thank you very much for joining today. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week by God's grace.